My name is Megan O'Russell.
And my name is Christopher Russell, and welcome back to Page by Page, Writing the Book in Real Time. This is episode 2. We are thrilled to be coming back to you. I am thrilled because I got to read more of Sketchbook, which we will be sharing with you, of course. But I wanted to start this week's episode with talking about something we had referenced last time, which was what we've done between episode 1 and episode 2. Where did we go?
A lot of places. So we actually ended up going to this amazing writers retreat that was kind of mind-blowing in learning lots of things about the industry and indie publishing and writing and how to be a good PA, because my husband's the best in the world.
Thank you so much.
But it was also just being willing to forgive yourself for not being perfect all the time was really the biggest thing that I took out of it.
That was one of the biggest things I took out of it too.
Was just the bravery to not be perfect and to be like, la-di-da, here I am, warts and all.
And also, may I actually interject real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. But just to build off of that, also something that I took away from it, and I think that all of you, those creatives who are listening to this can take away from it, is I had never, in the, how many years we've been doing this together? 5 years, I think, that we've been doing this like together, where I actually came into the industry. Like, you've been doing it for much longer. Yeah, together. Publishing. Yes, exactly. But I've never once seen myself as a creative entrepreneur. And that was something I was able to take out of this, is like, wait a minute, I am. And I don't know why labels are important, but I don't know. They had helped.
Your brain likes to categorize. You have a brain that really likes to have things to go in slots. And I think the
it's
freedom...
because I'm a video gamer.
Maybe you toggled yourself into the creative entrepreneur category and you were living it up.
Yeah.
But I think kind of along the same veins, one of the things that I took away from it is how much this podcast fits into what they were all like, no, Megan, you need to be brave and you need to do these things and put yourself out there. And I was like, oh, so I'm supposed to embrace all of the rawness of the podcast where I'm sharing my work as I go instead of taking months to make sure everything is perfect before I send it out.
Yes, and that actually leads me to a talking point. Remind us what this podcast is. Just kind of a brief summary. Like, we don't need to, because people have hopefully listened to episode 1. This is me staring at the camera for those of you listening at home.
Good glare.
Thank you very much. But hopefully you listened to episode 1. But just in case you're just now joining us, I think that we should continue to kind of tell people what this is about and why they should continue listening.
Sure. So on this podcast, Page by Page, I am writing a book, a chapter a week. And then after that chapter is written, I am sharing it with my lovely husband and business partner here. We are giving it a quick edit, and then we are sharing it on the podcast with all of you, along with all of the different writing techniques, tools, problems that I encountered along the way in creating this chapter, and what's happening in the publishing process as well. I love helping new authors find their way in the world, and I love storytelling in unique ways. So this is sort of my way of giving a baseline process example to new authors and finding a way to share a lot more with my story a lot more of my story with my readers than I usually do, because usually it's like, okay, everything's ready, everything's perfect, here you go, instead of the process and the twists and turns along the way and all of the research that goes into building a book that never actually makes it into the book.
Yeah.
It never makes it in.
Yeah, and we're actually going to talk a little bit about that today. I'm not going to bring it up, but there's something that we're going to talk about after we actually do the reading of the chapter, which we're going to get into a little bit faster this week because it's a larger chunk, which I'm so stoked about. I love the way this chapter unfolds and the way that it ends in particular, but we'll talk more about that later. But for right now, I think that we should introduce the craft beer of the week.
Wait, you didn't say what the thing was that we were going to talk a little bit about more later.
Don't worry about it.
But I don't know what it is.
But that's okay.
Anxiety,
don't
okay.
even
You're not
worry
going to tell me
about
that
it.
it's definitely time for the beer.
All right, so
Distract
the
me with beer
of the week,
anxiety or beer,
is
these are the choices.
Dragon's Milk Crimson Keep.
Ooh.
Which is really good. For those of you who are beer fans, this tastes To me, along the lines of the Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale, which is really, really lovely. So this is a red ale that's been aged in bourbon barrels, and it is just lovely. It is divine. It's got some nice caramel notes to it. Cheers.
To doing the scary thing.
Yeah. Dragons. Sorry. That is so good. I like that one better than the last week's.
Now I'm just picturing meeting a little dragon. He goes,
it's like Toothless.
Our little cat, we have 3 cats, and our littlest of them, she tries to hiss, and she's
adorable.
She's an adorable little thing. And when she tries to hiss, she doesn't, I'm not going to hiss because that'll set off all the cats and we won't be able to record anymore. Yeah. But instead of actually hissing like a proper cat, she goes, which if you're just doing the audio, picture my eyes completely closed as hard as I can, my mouth as wide as it can, like some toddler who's trying to show you food in the back of their mouth. That's what she does, and she thinks it's hissing.
Yeah, she does.
I love her.
Oh, something, a bit of an elephant in the room, because it looks very different if you're watching the video, I wanted to point out is our wall. We're actually we bought this place more than 6 months ago, almost 7 months ago. Renovations came to a complete halt. We are finally back up on it. And of course, we're starting with our book wall. We're stoked about the bookshelves. I'll give you a little peek. We'll see how well this happens, but I'm going to turn this just a little bit so you can hopefully see that.
For those on the audio only version, he is pointing the camera at a stack of milk crates. The stack of milk crates will be geniusly turned into a staircase of bookshelves going up the wall, which the cats are theoretically not supposed to climb. This is probably going to end in disaster, but currently I'm really hopeful about it, and when I learn my lesson the hard way, I'll accept it.
And for those of you who weren't with us last week, if you see me looking at my watch, it's because I am trying to make sure that the camera is still recording, because it likes to cut out on me after a certain amount of time. So yeah, that's why I'm looking at this. But yes, look at our wall. It's gorgeous. I love this color. We picked this color 4 months ago.
It was like 6.
Oh my gosh. Well, anyway, better late than never. I'm stoked. Yeah, I still have to actually fill in and caulk under the baseboards and paint, and so there's still a lot to be done. But no, I'm going to go ahead and say it now. Next week, you will be able to see the bookshelves. It's going to happen come heck or high water. I don't know why I said heck. I cursed during the podcast. Leave me alone. Oh.
Love of my life. Okay, let's read.
All right. Oh, yeah. So let us read.
Did you have any other questions beforehand?
No, we can talk. Sorry, I'm looking at my podcast notes right now. We can talk about that a little bit later on. Okay, so we're going to jump right into this. Now, I am going to actually jump back 2 paragraphs. So if this sounds like what you've heard last week, that's because 2 paragraphs are.
Can you give a previously on?
Oh, yeah, sure. I was actually just going to do that with some tech magic, but I can do it here.
That's do it with tech magic.
Okay, so
can you make it go across the screen like it's Star Wars? If they're doing the watchy version?
You were asking a lot of me. I felt like I can probably figure it out.
Okay, so if you're doing the watchy version, be ready. The text is going to go across the screen.
Well, by this point, they would have already seen it.
No, it's going to start now. Starting now.
And that was the magic of Star Wars trademark. We have no association with Disney or Lucasfilm or LucasArts or Star Wars, except for the fact that we love Star Wars in this house, even though Disney did ruin it. Anyway, no, that's not true. The Mandalorian was great.
Are you trying to be divisive?
No, those last 3 movies were terrible.
Okay,
all right,
well,
anyway.
Let's just do them.
Okay, sorry. I'm a purist. I like the original 3.
Yeah, but we're on a podcast where we're telling the story I wrote and you're critiquing Star Wars. Can we not?
No, right. Yeah, you're right. Okay. All right. I'll critique your work.
I'm much more comfortable with that.
Okay. So here we go. This is picking up from the end of last week. I sank back into my seat, holding my breath until someone started slow clapping. Maybe I had a slim, vague chance of surviving the rest of junior year. Right. Mrs. Parker blinked at me again. If everyone could pull out their planners, we have some fun new things to add to our calendars. She glanced down at me. If you don't, I have a planner. I pulled the spiral-bound book from my pile. I'd forgotten to tear off the plastic wrapping. Panic prickled the edges of my thoughts, like revealing the newness of my planner were an omen of doom. Focus on the details. Work with what you can control. Pinching a hole through the corner of the plastic, freeing my planner, that I could do. The first meeting of the Widows' Run Committee has been scheduled for this Friday, Mrs. Parker said. A single groan came from the back of the class. And we finally have an official date for the first Frost Ball. She got a better response to that one. I shoved the plastic into my pocket and flipped open my planner. The panic kept pressing in. It filled my head with a buzzing loud enough to drown out Mrs. Parker's voice. Numb and unhearing, I'd proven I could survive that. Pencil to paper, an easy, soothing task. I could manage that too. I used the lines around the little rectangle for November 16th as a frame to sketch 4 interlocking shapes, focusing on keeping all the spokes symmetrical. I fumbled my pencil, adding a harsh spike to the top left corner as the speakers in the room beeped, cutting off Mrs. Parker's announcements. A too soothing voice wished the students good morning before gaining a crisper edge to recite a list of new rules for the school parking lot. Sour rose in my throat as the voice went back to the soothing tone. And today, Laureldale High welcomes a new student, Ella Day. The muscles between my shoulders pinched as everyone used the disembodied voice's mention of me as a fresh excuse to stare. Make our new fellow feel at home. I dug my nails on my left hand into my palm. I dug the nails on my left hand into my palm. I did so well last week.
What if it was just nails? Like actual, that's as
just like actual nails instead of like fingernails? It
immediately goes to Amelia Bedelia in my head, where it's like actual nails.
Amelia Bedelia.
You don't know Amelia Bedelia?
Why do I know that?
Because it's a children's series. It's the nanny who takes everything literally.
I didn't read very much when I was a kid. Not until middle school. Then I really got into reading, but...
R.L. Stein, man. We'll have to tell the R.L.
Stein, Edgar Allan Poe.
This isn't the time for the R.L. Stein story.
No, it's not.
We have a great R.L. Stein story.
Okay, continue. All right. So, jumping back in. Where was I? Oh, yeah, I dug the nails. I dug the nails on my left hand into my palm, leaning into the buzzing in my head, willing it to be loud enough to shake every other thought into submission. My pencil swiped through the 4 locked shapes, scribbling up into November 15th, stretching the symbol into a blob with one bulging end, like a cartoon head mid-explosion. A tinny bell and the welcome squeal of chair legs on linoleum ended Hell Day Part 1. Don't be dramatic. Panic sharpens the enemy's blade. I'd survived first period. Only 6 more to go. I closed my planner and filed out with the rest of the class, letting the now beautifully constant buzz cocooning my thoughts drown out the fresh wave of whispers. A girl in a green... I'm sorry, I have to check and make sure that we're still recording.
We should get more high-tech as we go. Wait.
Yeah, I know. Okay. A girl in a green sweater dodged in front of me as I headed back past my locker, squeezing through a cluster of what I guessed were theater students, judging by their matching Hamilton shirts, to reach the classroom door before me. Let there be drama and let it not be me. That vain hope carried me through the classroom door. The girl in the green sweater crouched beside the seated teacher, shaking her head as she muttered something I didn't even want to hear. I stopped a few feet behind her, waiting for my turn to speak to the teacher. The girl nodded as she stood and had the courtesy to flinch when she turned and caught sight of me. Red filled her freckle-spattered cheeks. This is more how I usually do with read-alouds. I stepped around her, taking her place beside the teacher. The voices of the class came back into being as I made myself listen to the teacher speak. Miss Day, he whispered. Oh, whoops. There's a seat ready for you. If you have any questions about catching up on assignments, see me after class. He shooed me toward a desk in the center of the back row. I'm going to pause here for a second to explain that you can see one of the reasons that Megan and I did not continue on with our audiobook narration careers, because it is really hard.
Okay, let's put a pin in audiobook and come back to it later.
Okay, you got it.
Keep going.
The girl in the green sweater gave me a quick, not quite smile as I passed her on my way to my seat. Mr. Barrett, my new English teacher, didn't introduce me before going into the true meaning of to kill a mockingbird. I managed to take a few notes after the other students gave up on staring at me to pay attention to Mr. Barrett's lesson on empathy toward the plight of Boo Radley. Everything Mr. Barrett said lined up with the notes I'd already squeezed into my old copy of the Mockingbird Death Manual. A glimmering hope for recycling old essays carried me to my next class. That shit teacher made me tell everyone my name and favorite study snack, and kept me at the front of the room while he talked to the class about the responsibility of taking on a new lab partner mid-semester. Some of the students looked disinterested, others stared too hard like piranhas or creepers. A few had pity in their eyes that dragged sour up into my throat. In the very back of the room, a girl with short blonde hair twirled her pencil through her fingers like a mini baton. Back and forth, back and forth. The movement just a little too smooth, too quick. The sick in my throat sank away as instinct-born awareness slapped self-indulgent misery aside. The girl met my gaze, still twirling her pencil as she let me stare into her bright blue eyes. Danger. Predator. Werewolf. Every nerve in my body promised I was right. But the students gave danger their backs, gawking at the new freak in town instead of watching the fast path to a bloody end that lurked in the back of chemistry class like she was trying to pick who to murder first. "And who would like to volunteer to take on the noob?" shit teacher said. The blonde wolf tossed her pencil to her left hand. Sorry, something happened on my computer. The blonde wolf tossed her pencil to her left hand, her twirling not missing a beat as she looked down at her desk like she'd wanted to be sure I understood her lack of welcome. "Nobody wants to give their partner the boot?" Shit said. "Nobody wants to build a Triforce in chemistry?" "We'll take her." A girl in the third row nudged the boy beside her farther down their shared counter. "What?" The boy spoke through his teeth. "Karma, Andre." The girl beckoned me over, then turned back to the boy. "Get another seat." "I can get my own," I said. "He's happy to help." She brushed her pink-highlighted hair away from her face as she slid over to the center stool, leaving the place by the aisle to me. "Students coming together is my second favorite thing about teaching," Shit said. "Now on to number 1, destroying your spirits by telling you about the exam we're having on Friday." The blonde wall had the seat just in front of mine. The width of his shoulders didn't offer enough cover for me to hide from Mr. Shit's "Welcome to the Ram, fam." I missed the comforting buzz, but only corpses opted out of reality when dealing with wolves. Sydney, my new lab partner whispered, giving me the Sydney, my new lab partner whispered, giving me the least awkward smile I'd seen in weeks. "And this is Andre. He's great at chemistry and very happy to help, right, babe?" Andre didn't answer. Sydney flicked his arm. "Absolutely." Andre caught Sydney's hand as she moved to flick him again. He kissed her palm and threaded his fingers through hers, locking their hands under the table. Sydney rolled her eyes, pinching her lips together like that could hide her smile from Andre. He ducked his head, his own peaceful kind of smirk brightening his face as he took notes. Mr. Shit kept doing the thing where teachers change their inflection too drastically, sometimes in places that don't make any sense, like awkward irritation could force students into absorbing information. He rapped his knuckles on his desk, banging out random rhythms as he shared great unshakable truths. Even trying for a generous judgment, I couldn't make myself believe Mr. Shit would be brave enough to intentionally annoy a predator. "You're right about her. You know you are." I looked back, twisting far enough to see the werewolf. She'd stopped twirling her pencil between her fingers to take notes, her eyes locked on the board at the front of the room. The pretty black-haired girl in front of the wolf met my gaze. She gave me a creepily pinched smile as her cheeks darkened. I turned back front, sparing the blushing girl. Looking front wasn't safe either. The blonde wall had been watching me. His eyes widened as he noticed I'd spotted him. His eyes were a different kind of blue than the wolf's, deeper, lacking the spark that seemed to say, "Murder is always an option." Red spread from the wall's collar to his forehead. He turned back to the front of the room and tipped his chin down, the angle of his shoulders drooping just enough to stifle the anger. Excuse me. I got very distracted by our cat jumping on a bed where he's not supposed to be.
Papa. Honestly, we have to keep them in here because if we shut a door, the level of screaming you wouldn't believe. 2 of them are half Siamese. I love them more than life, but...
For those of you who don't know, playing the home game, Siamese talk a lot. And it's adorable, usually.
It's a lot.
Okay.
I love them.
Yeah.
Baba.
Whatever. Red spread from the wall's collar to his forehead. He turned back to the front of the room and tipped his chin down, the angle of his shoulders drooping just enough to stifle the anger I wished would flicker to life. I scribbled down notes, circling unfamiliar information, ignoring the pain building in my chest with every word shit teacher said. Destroying the classroom would be easier. Screaming until my throat bled had some appeal too. Pretending to give a damn about solutes was more than I could manage. I'd let the buzzing in my head grow back to full blast by the time chemistry ended. I couldn't make myself feel guilty for not managing to cling to rational fears while I bolted for the hall to avoid pretending to be able to hear whatever nice things Sydney might try to say. A trembling sort of fear rolled down my spine, renewing the shaking in my lungs that begged me to break down and cry. I could have cried. I had every right to fall into too many pieces to put back together. People wouldn't have even been surprised. That's what sob stories are supposed to do. Twist into something dark and fragile and unrecognizable, so their misery can make everyone else feel better about the petty little troubles that plague their petty little lives. I wouldn't let whatever petty little people had bet against me making it through the day win. The fear twisted, the trembling worsening as it cinched around my ribs. Cold tingles scratched down my neck. The feeling followed me as I turned the corner, heading toward math. I stopped in the center of the hall, turning back, pretending to be checking where I was going, hoping that if my end were speeding toward me, my death might at least be quick. The blonde wall dodged sideways, almost knocking a guy out of the way to keep from crashing into me. "Sorry," the wall said. "My fault," I said. The blonde werewolf passed, giving me the tiniest shake of her head as I opened my mouth to speak. I spun around, taking 2 quick steps to follow her. "Excuse me, hi." I gripped my books, resisting the potentially deadly urge to reach for her arm. "I think we're in the same chemistry class?" The muscles on the sides of her neck tightened. "I was hoping you might want—" Her steps quickened as she fled into Algebra 2. The avalanche of anxiety I'd been holding back since I'd been dumb enough to leave the house that morning let loose. Survive, Ella. That's all you have to accomplish today. Survive. Not even a whole day. Not even until lunch, and I'd already forgotten every reason I'd decided my being in school wasn't a total shit idea. Falling apart only makes it worse. A werewolf in chem class? Inconvenient. An unwelcoming werewolf in Blackwood territory? Could make the whole surviving goal less realistic. In the classroom, the girl in the green sweater from English knelt beside the math teacher's desk. The blonde wall leaned over Green Sweater, like he'd horned in on their huddle. Heat burned in my cheeks and pressed against my eyes. I tucked myself beside the door, clearing out of Sydney and Andre's path as I waited for my turn with the teacher. Green Sweater shooed the wall away, carefully not looking my direction as she hurried to her seat. "Get through this and you can have lunch. Just one more class between you and a chance to breathe." I stepped up to the teacher's desk. He rocked back in his chair, giving a little grunt as he used his momentum to stand. "Miss Day." His voice stayed strained as he reached for my hand. "Mr. Carver." His palm felt clammy against mine. His fingers did too. More like a deflated fish than anything that should be attached to a human. "Pleased to have you joining us in class." I could hear Mr. Carver's voice even as his flaccid hand vanished. The floor tipped. The sound of my breath rattled in my ears. A new Mr. Carver stood behind his desk, his shape too crisp against the blurred background. The light focused in on him, highlighting his form as fear filled his sweat-slicked face. Faux Carver twisted, grabbing the back of his chair, managing to stay upright just long enough that his heart had stopped before his forehead smacked against the ground. "A packet for you to take home with you." Mr. Carver's flaccid hand reappeared in mine. Don't worry about rushing to catch up. My knees threatened to give as I let go of his hand. Mr. Carver stepped back, centering himself behind his desk, perfectly placed for the yellowish light above to glint off the sheen of sweat beading on his forehead. Paige, give a wave. Green Sweater waved from the fourth row. Right back there, Mr. Carver said. Best seat in the house. Perfect, I said. Everyone wants the best seat in the house to watch their math teacher die. And that was the end of chapter 1. We made it through. We got through chapter 1 because that was still chapter 1, right?
Yes.
Because that's what we started last week.
Yes.
And just as a reminder, and for those of you who are just joining us this week, that from here on, it is going to be a chapter per episode. It's just that, to introduce things, we wanted to do a little more time. We needed a little more time.
To get everybody in the groove.
Yes, it's true. So
my hands, first off, I know you have questions.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
But my hands hurt so badly right now.
Why? You were
because
clenching?
I sit here and I lace my fingers together, but it's like the heels of my hands are apart and I'm cinching my fingers together. Mm-hmm. So every once in a while, I make my hands let go so I can get a sip of my beer. So really, I think the beer is medicinal because it's saving me from tearing my own fingers off.
Yeah.
As I sit here trying not to panic, listening to you read this.
Yeah.
And I'm trying not to let my face do the weird expressions that I always do, but be like pleasantly benign, but not look bored. So I'm like gripping my hands. I'm like, I'm a pleasant person. And it's just... like this, so I really need the beer to go with
the thing is, it's funny that you say that because it reminds me.
There are nail marks in the back of
a director that we had for different productions. I don't remember how many she directed, but we had a director who literally, like, as you were acting, she was making all the faces along with you, and it was adorable. It was very funny. It was like, it's a sad scene. Oh, it's a happy.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
he's at.
And it wasn't.
He walks towards her.
And she was doing it. 2, and if she's listening
3.
to this, we love you. But she was doing this.
I wonder if
completely.
she'd know that we're talking about her. I wonder if she.
Oh, she absolutely would, because I've said this to her, because I've been like, is there something wrong? She's like, what? I was like, your face. She's like, oh no, I'm sorry. I don't even mean to do that. I just kind of embody whatever action is happening on stage.
No,
so I get it.
See, I'm not embodying. I'm just like, I have the most like weird twisty face, and it's distracting, and I'm really sorry. And I'm okay. Like trying to keep it down.
I love your weird twisty face.
You better. It's the only one you get.
Yeah. That's
okay. So
true.
now that we've talked about my hands,
the only
what
one
are your questions? I know.
I'll save that for later. I wanted to talk about Mr. Carver. So you say, let me go back to the manuscript. But you say one of the first lines is, I don't know how Mr. Carver died in math class. Finally, we get to see this happen. Now, we've talked about the fact that you have seers in this. So how did you decide how you were going to show her having this vision? We actually talked about this a little bit during edits, like an hour before we started recording this.
That's insane.
I said an hour last time too, but I actually think that it was about an hour between the end of edits and recording. But you were like, okay, wait a minute. Do I need to kind of change it just a little bit more so that you can see the difference between her having a vision and the reality of the situation? And you did. So how did you land on having like the what was it, like the shape being too crisp against the blurred background, so it's throwing things into a weird like focus of oh man, I used to know how to talk camera speak because I have a Canon, but it's that the field of view, so like having that depth, like, so when you use a camera. Yeah. So how did you decide to use that? And then also like the other things that you used to highlight this, like what made you land where you did on the way the visions work?
I always wanted the visions to work that way, and it kind of goes a little deeper.
Okay.
So, and I don't know if we have to go into all of it right now, or how important it is, or how important it'll be in this book. Who's to say? But I want the way that she experiences visions to have some variety based on different factors.
Sure.
And so with a vision like this, where she is right there, it is happening, it is coming soon, she is an active, present person in this. In those kinds of cases, it comes very clear in a flash. It comes very clear and fast, and she knows what she's seeing.
Okay.
And so I want her brain to be literally highlighting the problem for her.
Okay.
So that's that crispness, that light of her brain being like, this is the danger source.
Okay.
To accent when things are more complicated. And adding more of the description in here because I've known how I want it to look. But the problem with writing this chapter and writing it and putting it out without like finishing the whole book and having the chance to go back is it's like, well, how much exposition do I drop here? So like how much do I want to be like, and it's a vision?
Well, and I love the fact that we don't actually see him die yet in chapter 1. Like I really love that. I love the way that you end this chapter, and I love that you bookend it, sorry for the pun, so well with it being like, here are the 3 lies that I told on my first day. I don't know how Mr. Carver died in math class, and then everyone wants the best seat in the house to watch their math teacher die. Like the way that you bookended it is so great.
It's like I planned it.
I know, which is very anti the way that you do everything else, which actually leads me to, no, you know what? I'll save that for a second. But no, I won't actually. I'll go back to this. So we had talked earlier, because I listened to the last week's episode before doing this, just to make sure that everything was fresh in my mind. And one of the things that you had asked me about when I was listening to the podcast, you're like, oh, so for continuity. And it made me go, oh, now that's an interesting topic. How are you handling continuity in this new form of storytelling for you? Like, I know that it's weird to say new form because you're still writing it down, but how is it different? Is it harder? Is it easier because you have all of the notes lined up just to make sure that everything is kept like sequential, that there is continuity?
So the clackety clack part of writing,
yes,
where your hands just go bleh, and you make the words go, that part is faster
with this process.
Yes,
okay.
But the prep work to get to the clackety clack part is like
clackety clack.
So so far we have 2 named teachers.
Yes.
We have Ella.
Yes.
We have Paige. We have Sydney. We have Andre. So maybe I'm wrong. Someone please call me out if I'm wrong. Do it in the comments, yo. I think we have 6 named characters so far.
Okay.
I have something like
Sydney, Andre, Ella, Mrs. Parker, Mr. Carver,
Paige.
Yeah, I think you're right. But yeah, let us know in the comments if we're wrong.
But so with all of those people, that's all I have on the page right now.
Okay.
But I have like 30 some people with descriptions, alignments, pictures.
Okay.
Part of their class schedule.
Okay.
Like it's a little like it's exhaustive.
Sure.
It is exhaustive. It is an exhaustive list. It is an absurd amount of work to make sure that I have the right people in the right places. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to come into play for a while. Like I can't really say like, and this part is important because I can't do that because it's huge spoilers. But there is something that happens in this chapter where presence becomes very important, where who was in the room.
Sure.
And so even though...
And I know why.
It's not all lined up of why that becomes important because that happens in this book and I finished chapter 1 and it's getting published and it's on a podcast. I had to make sure that even though no one else knows what's in that room, who's in that room, like there isn't a roster that's been posted, I need to know who's there.
Right. Okay.
And that's exhausting. Just naming them and being like, who has what hair color and eye color and like personality traits, and then tracking their social groupings. So I know like who's friends with who and who would be where and who would be a part of what social gatherings. Like, yes, this is what sends me into a tailspin, man.
Sure. No, I get that. But I think you're doing a great job so far. I'm excited to read chapter 2 when you write it.
I'm excited to write chapter 2. This is terrifying. This whole thing is terrifying.
So speaking of like the actual writing and the words, and this is where like I kind of come into play with editing, although I think that both of the things we're going to talk about are things you decided to change. I wanted to talk a little bit for those of you who are writers, who are creatives, or who are just interested in the writing process. Here is like sometimes edits can be so small and make such a huge difference. For instance, the sentence was initially, Not even a whole day, not even until lunch. And I'd already forgotten every reason my being in school wasn't a total shit idea. I'd already forgotten every reason my being in school wasn't a total shit idea. Or maybe there was a Y in there. But it changed to, and I'd already forgotten every reason I'd decided my being in school wasn't a total shit idea. So do you want to talk about the difference there? Or do you want me to talk about the difference there? Because there is a big difference between those two sentences. Because it's just with 2 words.
It's self-empowerment. And the thing is with Ella, where we're starting off with her in the story, like she's in a shit show of a place.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, that was added literally like when we were editing this. Probably an hour ago.
Well, because I found the opportunity to like dial in that clarity of like, this is her choice. Because she is in a dark place. She's entering a school mid-semester. She's new in town. She's lost her parents. She doesn't have any friends.
Right.
Like, all of this stuff is heaping on her. And it is very disempowering for her because she is shoved into that situation. And I think giving her the reminder that like, yeah, it's bad. Yeah, things aren't going great for her. Yeah, she feels helpless. She feels she's grieving. She's barely clinging to it, but she chose this.
Yeah.
And just giving her that power of having actively made the choice to go to school, I think is a big deal for her.
Sure.
And I think it's also important to the reader that they understand that she's not like some helpless little waif who was shoved brutally back into school when she wasn't ready. Like, she decided to step back into the world. And I think that that's important for her character development and for the reader to be able to invest in her.
I just love the fact that it went from why this was a good idea to why she decided this was a good idea. So now
Which
she's
also puts more of the bad idea on her.
100%.
Like,
It's like what the, because we've all been there. We've all been like, why the hell did I think this was a good idea? This wasn't a good idea. So yeah, there is no forgetting reasons that this was a good idea. It's forgetting reasons why I had made this conscious decision that, yeah, I was going to do this. Like, stupid, right? At least that's what she thinks at that time. Okay, so sorry, I'm checking my watch more. We're getting close to the 40-minute mark, which is when we lost our video last time. So I'm going to just keep an eye on it.
We should come up with more high-tech solutions for this.
Well, the high-tech solution is that we're going to start filming with my camera. Right now, we're filming on my iPhone 14 Pro. But we're going to... I know, I got a haircut.
You don't have enough hair to flip.
Right.
You haven't had enough hair to flip in a long time.
That's
okay,
true.
continue.
Not since Fiddler. But yeah, we're going to film on the Canon, and that'll be a lot easier to control, actually. So a few things that I wanted to talk about. So let's see. We talked about that. This is very quick. We don't have to like linger on this, but I had made mention of this earlier, and I think we should talk about it, about how I had never realized until I started working as your editor, the power of paragraphs and like when you decide to end them and to start a new one. So for me in high school, it was all about, well, you have 3 to 4 sentences and then you move on, because that was, public school. It's great in some ways and it fails us miserably in others.
Hey, my spelling is atrocious.
Your spelling is atrocious, but it was a very interesting, but that's a topic for another time. Because the idea was, I liked the idea, but it didn't yield great results. But where was I? Oh yeah. So paragraphs. So initially, we had a new Mr. Carver stood behind his desk, his shape too crisp against the blurred background, going right into the light focused in on him, highlighting his form as fear filled his sweat-slicked face. But you decided, because you wanted to have that dramatic beat, I'm assuming, that you put that paragraph there. So a new Mr. Carver stood behind his desk, his shape too crisp against the blurred background. Paragraph, the light focused in on him. And also, with that dramatic emphasis, the light focusing in on him, do you think any of this is because of your theatrical background? Like having such an eye for dramatic emphasis, doing something like having a spotlight come in on this character to highlight something. Do you know what I mean? Have you thought about that?
I mean, okay, so that's like 2 different questions.
It is 2 different questions.
So the idea of the light focusing in on him is very much like a theater thing. I didn't actually realize that when I put it in.
Yeah.
But now that you've said it, you're absolutely right. Because when you're on stage and there's like a lot going on and you're trying to get the audience to focus, what do? You put a spotlight on them. Even if it's subtle, just brighten them up a bit. The audience will know exactly where you want them to look. So, yes, that was unconscious, but now that you've said it, I can't actually deny it. That's cool.
Yes. Put that on your bingo card.
The other thing is... Stop.
You might have to start again from the other thing, but keep going. I'll let you know.
Okay, the other thing... paragraphs. We were talking about paragraphs.
Yes, we were talking about paragraphs.
So the other thing about paragraphs is it's kind of two different things, and both of them make me sound as weird. So I like shortening paragraphs sometimes, or even sometimes creating massively long paragraphs, because I like the shape it makes on the page, and I like the way it makes your brain go. So if you're like trying to power through this really long sentence and make your brain absorb it, if what your character is trying to power through something, then you're going to feel like this, okay, I'm trying to. Now, to some extent, it's not going to work, because if you do that for too long, you're just going to lose them no matter what, because, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's as simple as like action sequences, use short lines, but sometimes it's also just like the beautiful breaks of scattered thoughts.
Okay.
Of when you're in trauma or love or whatever it is, when your brain is just taking hold of snippets of moments as what they want to hold on to.
Yeah.
Then that's when I like using the shorter paragraphs, because it is those like little snapshot moments that make up big things.
Yeah.
At least in my brain, that's how it goes.
No, that makes sense.
Is that it becomes like these little tiny things.
Yeah.
And then aside from the visual layer of liking to keep it long or short sometimes, it is also a theater thing. Mm-hmm. Of like, you want beats and moments and blah, blah, blah when you're acting.
Yeah.
And so... giving that to the reader, like, I'm not on stage. I can't perform the beats and moments.
Right.
But giving them that beat of transitioning to a new paragraph, even though it's not technically necessary, like, I'm making them take that beat, whether they like it or not, before we move on.
It's so brilliant. It's one of the things, honestly, I think that you truly mastered with the Anna of Ilbrea series. And I don't remember what line it is, but those of you who have read Anna of Ilbrea might know. But there is a line that I just read in the sample that we did today that I was like, God, that is so Anna. It's so Anna, and I don't remember which one it is. Oh, I think it's panic will sharpen the enemy's blades. Or blade, something like that. I was like, oh, that is such an Anna thought, and I love it. But that is where...
It's Megan Brain in Little Hobbit mode.
It is.
Panic will sharpen the enemy's blade.
By the way, if you ever
Watch
want a look into... I know that we're here to talk about Sketchbook, but if you ever want a glimpse into Megan's brain, go read How I Magically Messed Up My Life in 4 Freaking Days. That's just literally her brain, and it's hilarious and terrifying.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah, you're welcome. So just a few more things to wrap up. I wanted to touch on things that we said that we would talk about last week.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and start with werewolves and rock bands. What's that about? You said that we were going to talk about it this week. So tell us about this.
So in most werewolf things, because it makes sense, wolves are pack animals.
Yes.
So it makes sense that werewolves would want to be pack creatures. And
which is why you see so many of them in like motorcycle gangs and stuff.
Or
and
like
things.
High school sports or things like that.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Yeah. But sports aren't the only pack things.
Right.
The arts are created of little packs. We have done 2 national tours. There is no greater pack than a horde of hungry actors piling off of a tour bus.
Yeah, especially on the full moon.
Ooh, it's crazy. Like, you don't want to go there. So I wanted to expand the pack mentality out of the sports fields for more than one reason. One, because there's no way that a werewolf would be able to pass a blood test. So you couldn't have a high school football hero werewolf go on to be a quarterback for the NFL.
Right.
Because there's no way they're going to be able to pass blood tests or urine tests.
Well, also, what happens if they get hurt and then immediately heal?
Exactly. But you know who no one tests? Musicians. And so actors. It makes sense for me where, like, if you're going to have these werewolves excel in extraordinary ways and be a part of a pack thing, there is no reason they would not be in band or theater.
Sure.
And those are professions where, like, the blood test thing and the urine test thing is not going to be a huge deal like it would be with a professional athlete. Yeah,
no, that makes a lot of sense. And being a professional actor and musician, I can verify no blood test.
No blood test, pack mentality, like, it makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
Actors and musicians are werewolves. We even come out at night. It's true, though.
It's true. We are nocturnal. Yeah, no, that's wow. I've never thought about that.
Wild animals that come out at night.
You heard it here, folks. Theater people are werewolves. Okay, so getting to the less supernatural, I wanted to talk a little bit about what our plan is for the serial apps. And also, you had mentioned something about Kickstarter. I don't know if you're ready to talk more about Kickstarter yet, but let's start with the serial apps. We've developed that into a little bit better of an idea now.
Yes. No, I have good ideas.
Okay, great. No, I know you have
potentially good ideas. They could go horribly wrong.
Well,
so as of now, the concrete plan is that as we release the chapters to go with each podcast episode, that chapter will be put on Kindle Vella and also on my Substack. So the Kindle Vella will be just the text of the chapter. The Substack, because Substack allows podcast platforms and ways that I can share fun extras, because there is art being created to go along with each of the chapters. We'll have to talk about that.
Yes, our artist is doing great.
Yes, we'll put that in the notes for next time. It's great. Yep. So we have those special art pieces and things that are going up with the Substack release of the chapters. So Substack will be access to the podcast, some fun art extras, the text of the chapter. So that's where you're going to want to go. Substack is going to be your best bet for the full experience. Now, once the whole season has been released and the book is finished, then we're going to have a Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter is going to be to create a deluxe, not luxury. There's a big difference between the words. A deluxe hardback edition of Sketchbook of a Wayward Seer. So then the options for that will be ebook, paperback, and then a really, really nice hardcover book. So that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah.
And the reason that we're going with Kickstarter is that because Ella is an artist and because art is a part of the story, I want to be able to have that included in the book. So having the opportunity to give an artist a chance to really embody Ella's art and to be a part of the storytelling and then to share things from the podcast on it that will go with the Kickstarter. Like, I'm really excited to be able to create that version of this story to share with Kickstarter backers because Amazon won't let you do that. Other platforms won't let me give a version of that. There's no other platform that will allow me to share in that way. So I'm really grateful that Kickstarter has really moved into the publishing industry.
Yes, in such a big way.
And they're giving authors the ability to reach their readers with unique experiences. So not only can I have a fancy hardback edition, but I can also have to go with that, because this is at Laurel-Dale High, I can include a Laurel-Dale High t-shirt or
Please
an
tell
art
me there's
print.
going to be a ram on it.
There's absolutely a ram on it. Or, anything like prints from the artist or things like that.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that on any other platform.
No.
And since I am asking people to invest so much of their time and hearts into joining us on this journey, I want them to be able to have those extras, and Kickstarter is the way that I'm going to be able to provide that.
Well, and man, Kickstarter has given a rise to authors who were heretofore unknown. Like, for instance,
heretofore.
Whatever. I said that correctly, didn't I?
Yes, but
I'm me, and you married me. I'm the only one that you get. Authors that I had never heard of before. Like, there's this guy, what is it? It's like Brandon Sanderson or something. I'm kidding. Sorry, I couldn't make it through.
I was really waiting. I was like, who? Yeah. Did we talk about this?
I'm
Did
kidding.
the brain injury make me forget? Did we order something from them?
For those of you who might not know,
it?
because some people might not know. Some people maybe just stumbled onto this podcast and aren't huge readers like we are. But Brandon Sanderson, very, very big deal, and made a killing on Kickstarter. I mean, he's brilliant. The man is just brilliant.
He decided to take epic fantasy and go, I claim this mountain fort.
Yeah.
Me.
His work is fantastic.
This is my mountain.
Among other things.
I shall conquer it.
Didn't he finish the Wheel of Time series? I'm pretty sure he did.
Don't make me lie on camera.
I think he did.
I feel uncomfortable.
All right, I will lie on camera. I'm pretty sure Brandon Sanderson actually took up the mantle of finishing the Wheel of Time series, which was a Robert Jordan series, which some of you might have seen on Amazon Prime because they turned it into a show. We should give that another try. It wasn't as good as the book, but I kind of want to check it out again. Anyway, but that is beyond all the time that we have. Actually, today we've gone a little bit over, but you know what? That's okay because it's our podcast, so whatever.
And so you should, here, we have to do the thing that you're supposed to say at the end of every episode to be super fancy. We'll write out a script for it.
Yeah.
But for now, so whatever platform you're listening on, do the thing where you follow us and like us and leave us reviews so other people can find us. And if it's on a video platform where you can do comments, then
leave a nice comment.
Oh, yeah. Leave a nice comment.
Even if it says nice comment. That's cute. That's great. We love it.
Maybe, have you spotted the antagonist in the books yet?
I mean, I finally did.
No, you didn't.
No, but I spotted Anne and
No.
They're not the antagonists?
No. Oh.
Now I'm upset. I thought I did a good job.
So, like, follow, share, comment, all those good things. We will be back next week with another chapter of Sketchbook of a Wayward Seer. And in the meantime, this has been Page by Page.
It has. And as always, thank you for reading.